After going through this video, you'll have the foundations to start making music and mixing in Cakewalk by Bandlab, and this will also work for Sonar as well. So what we're going to look at in this Cakewalk tutorial is setting up Cakewalk for optimal audio recording. We'll do some audio recording, work with MIDI and virtual instruments, we'll add effects to tracks, do a little bit of arranging and a little bit of mixing so you have the foundations, and then we'll do a mixdown to MP3 so you could share your projects with the world or just listen to them on other devices if you want. So first, let's look at setting up our audio interface in Cakewalk by Bandlab. And what we want to do is from our main open screen, we just go up to Edit and then Preferences. And then in here, you want to go to the Devices tab right here. And if you're not seeing all the same stuff that I have, maybe you're not clicked on the Advanced tab. You could just go to Basic if you want. But for what I'm about to go over, we just need what's in the Basic anyway, so you won't need to change that. Now, the way Cakewalk is set up, it's not chronological here. What we want to do is go down to Playback and Recording first. So under the Audio tab, Playback and Recording. And then you want to go to driver mode. And ideally, you want to use ASIO here. And this is the lowest latency driver type. If you have a USB audio interface, you'll likely need to go to the manufacturer's website to see if there is an ASIO driver for it. And if there isn't one, then you could go to the Wasapi, either exclusive or shared. You might want to try shared first and see if that works out for you. That's going to be the next best, lowest latency in there. So we set that to ASIO, or you set it to the Wasapi, whatever mode works for you. Then we want to go up to Devices. And then in this Input Drivers section, you want to make sure all of your inputs are checked. That means they're enabled. Now, my audio interface has a lot of inputs on it. Yours might have 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, whatever. Make sure you check off all of the ones that you have there. And then for your outputs, you want to make sure you have your outputs 1 and 2 checked for sure, because that's your main output. But if you have other outputs and you want to use those, you can check those as well. Now, one more thing that we'll look at here, and that's going to be our driver settings. And the important stuff in here is going to be your sampling rate, as they call it. And I like to use 48,000. Typical for beginners would be 48,000 or 44,100. And you could go with either of those, or you could go with something higher if you really want to. But I don't recommend going lower than 44,100. 48,000 is a nice middle ground. It's DVD quality, whereas 44,100 is CD quality. You can do either one here when you're just starting out, and then you might want to get into some of the higher ones later on. So if you're using that ASIO driver, you're going to see this mixing latency. And what you see here is buffer size, and there's fast to safe. And then you're going to see a little number at the end here, and it's also down here. So fast is the lowest latency, and safe is the highest latency. So when you're starting out, you might think, okay, I'm going to go with the fastest, but your computer and your audio interface may not be able to handle the fastest. So you can try it out, see if it works. If you start experiencing weird stutters and it doesn't play back, maybe it even crashes, then what you want to do is go back in here and move it up to something else and keep trying until you find the buffer size that works best for your computer. Now, one thing to keep in mind is the more tracks that you start adding into Cakewalk by Bandlab, and if you start to add effects in there as well, it's going to increase the demand for your buffer size, and you're going to need to increase it later on. So try to find that safe ground early on and do your recording using the lowest, and then start adding your effects later on. And you may need to increase this later. So this is a tab you might want to revisit once you get to the mixing stage in your projects. So that's it for in here. But while we're in this settings, if you have a MIDI keyboard that you're going to be using, you might want to just quickly hop in here, go to Devices, and then in the input section, just make sure you have it checked off for whatever your MIDI keyboard is. You'll see it in the list. Make sure it's checked for inputs. The outputs won't really matter unless you're going to be routing MIDI out Or if you're using a MIDI DAW controller, then you might want to access the outputs there, and then we're done here. So you would just click apply and we would close this down. So now we're ready to start a project. And when you first open Cakewalk, you should see this screen. If you don't see it, maybe you closed it, but you can easily bring it back up if you go up to File, and then we go to Start Screen. And what we need to do now, because we're just beginning, is create a new project. And you can see there's some templates in here. And some are pretty straightforward. You have basic, which is going to set up a basic little bit of a mix, 4-track. You're going to have 4 tracks, 16, you'll have 16. And then you can see I've created some templates down here, so you can have some that you create as well. But what I want to do for this is just create an empty project. So we click on that, and here's our empty project. This is what it looks like when we first open it up. And what we might want to do right now is just tidy up our workspace a little bit. You can go to these little arrows here, and we can click on that, and it's going to kind of hide that away because we don't need it right now. And we can do the same thing over here, just hide that away. And we have a nice clutter-free workspace to get started with. And now one thing I do recommend doing, if this is going to be a serious project for you, you're not just kind of playing around in here, I do recommend going up to File, and then you want to go to Save, and you would just save this to wherever. I'm going to save it right here. I'll call it Test 22. And we'll just click Save. And now we can easily save our progress as we go. And I really recommend getting used to pressing Control and S on your computer keyboard. Those are the hotkeys for saving, and you want to save often. Sometimes you want to save after every little step that you do. So if you record something in, save. If you move something around, save. You want to keep saving and just get in the habit of clicking Control S as often as possible, because these programs do crash. And it's not just Cakewalk that crashes, it's all of them. They can crash. A lot of times it's because of third-party plugins just kind of interfering. Sometimes it's due to your buffer size. It can crash. Whatever the reason is, they do crash. So you want to save often. But now we're ready to start making some music in here. So let's create an audio track, and we can just easily click on this plus sign here. And you can see you can choose either instrument or audio. So if yours is on instrument by default, we're creating an audio track now. So we're going to click on audio. And for our input, you can see it's defaulted to a stereo input, which is input 1 and 2. Yours might do that as well. I'm not going to be recording in stereo. I'm just going to be recording input 1. So I'm going to choose input 1. Yours might be named input 1, or it might have some other name on there. Whatever it is, you just click on it. We can record enable it right from here, and input monitoring can be enabled right from here. You'll probably want to do that if you plan on recording. Just easily do that. I would normally click this, but I'm going to show you another way that we can do this from outside of this window. So let's go to Create. And we have our track here. Now I'm going to expand it. So you can see these arrows again. We click there and we can make it a little bit bigger. And I'm going to give this a name. I'm going to call it bass. So I'm going to record a bass guitar in there eventually. So I'm just going to grab my bass right now and I'll be right back. All right, so I've got my bass connected. I'm ready to start recording. And you'll notice if I play my bass right now, nothing happens on the screen. You don't see any levels. We don't hear it coming in. What we're going to want to do is first click on the record enable here, or arm for recording button. We'll click that. Now if I play, you can see we have some levels, and I want to adjust my levels on my audio interface, not in the software. So you saw my levels were really hot coming in there. They're a little bit better now. And what I did was just adjusted it on the audio interface. If you use the faders in Cakewalk to adjust your levels, all you're doing is just lowering it. So if you see that you're clipping If you lower the volume, you're still clipping. It's just going to be quieter. That's all. So you want to make sure your levels are set on your audio interface. And typically a nice setting for me is between -18 and -6 dB. It gives you lots of headroom in there. It's a lot of dynamic range for whatever it is you're recording. When you're setting your levels, try to either play as loud as you're going to be playing when recording or sing as loud as you'll be singing when recording. And that way you can make sure you're not going to be clipping once you are recording. But we have the problem. We can see we have levels, but we can't hear our levels. We need to enable the input monitoring. And from out here, it's this little button right here. We'll click on that. So that is our input monitoring. We're ready to record right now, but what I want to do before I hit record is just change our BPM. I know I want a BPM of 150 for what I'm about to record. And to make sure that I stick with that BPM, I want to enable the metronome here. So these are our metronome settings. And you see right above it, there's these two buttons. Right now it was clicked, so my metronome will come on when I'm recording. That's if I have this clicked right here. If I have this clicked, it's going to play while I'm just doing playback. So I'll hear the metronome when I'm just playing. I don't really want that. I just need it for when I'm recording. So I would have it there. If you don't need it at all, you can turn it right off if you want. And there's more settings. If we click on that, you can see there's a record count in, and maybe I'll do that. We'll do one measure of a count in, and you can see there's some other settings in here. You can control the levels, the sound of the metronome. You can go in here and adjust that all you like, but I'm good to go right now. So what I'm going to do now to record is hit record up here, and it's going to start recording, but we'll hear that count in first. So let's do that. All right, so that's my little bit of a bass recording right there. And if we wanted, we could trim this up a bit. You can see that if I go to the edge of the audio clip here, it changes the way it looks. And when it looks like that, I can just click and drag to trim it up a bit. So I'll do that right now. And if I hover the mouse over the top part of the edge here, I can add a little bit of a fade if I want. So I might as well add that. Now you may want to zoom in and out. And to do that, you hold down Alt on your computer keyboard and you can use your mouse to zoom in and out. And if you want to scroll across, once your projects start getting bigger, you may want to scroll across. We could just hold down Control on the computer keyboard and use the wheel, and it's going to scroll across. Or if we want to zoom in, we hold down Alt. So there's some little tips for you right there. Now, one thing to note is we've just started recording from about bar 2 to bar 10. And we can continue recording right from bar 10 if we want, or I'll zoom out a little bit. I can start recording somewhere else on this same track. Say I want to record at 15 here. I can just hit record. And you can do that all over the place in here. And of course, we can click and drag these clips around, drop them wherever we want. We're going to get a little bit more into the arrangement side of things a little later in the video, so I'm not going to get too heavy into that right now. Also, we can record on another track while we have this one play back. So if we have a guitar or a vocal that we want to record using this as a backing track, we can easily do that. So we will create another track. It's going to be another audio track. We'll use the same input. And this time I will record enable and input monitor right from here. Create. And we're going to disable this other one for recording and turn the input monitoring off. And I'll name this bass 2. So I'm ready to record again. I'll make that bigger. Hit record. All right, so you get the picture. We can continue to create tracks and record to new tracks. If you are recording vocals, you're likely going to have backing vocals, doubled vocals, and other vocal parts. You'll have a lot of vocal tracks in there, and you can create as many as you want or as many as your computer can handle. So that's a look at working with audio. Now let's look at using MIDI and virtual instruments. So I'm just going to put my guitar away and I'll be right back. We're going to expand this little menu over to the side here because it makes working with virtual instruments a lot easier than just creating an instrument track. And what I'm going to do is click on this little, looks like a keyboard icon here. I'll click on that, and it's going to show us all of our virtual instruments. Now, I have a lot installed on my computer that I've paid for and got for free, and you can do that as well. You can add as many plugins as you want to Cakewalk, and you're probably going to want to do that as you go along. But for this, I'll look at some plugins that came with Cakewalk, and first is going to be drums. So if I go in here, this SI drum kit, that actually comes with Cakewalk. If you don't have it, you might not have installed the add-ons when you were doing your first install of Cakewalk. Now you can easily go into your Bandlab Assistant app, and on there you want to go to the apps tab at the end here, go down to Cakewalk, and there's a little drop down menu and you'll see install add-ons. And you might want to do that or you may not. It's up to you. But for this, I'm going to use the SI drum kit, and that's the one that comes with Cakewalk. So I just drag and drop it over into this section here. It's going to create our drum track or instrument track for us. And just by looking at this, it doesn't look like we've added anything. Now, I'm just going to close this side again. But if we want to see the interface for this drum plugin, we can click on this little icon here. Again, it looks like a keyboard. So we click on that and there's our user interface for our drum plugin. I can click and you can hear them that way. I can play them on my keyboard here. One thing to note is if you're going to be recording, you can't record your clicks. So if you want to record MIDI input, you won't be able to record your clicks because that's not MIDI and the system's looking for MIDI. Now, if you don't have a MIDI keyboard, but you still kind of want to have that feel, we can go up to Views, and then in here we can go to Virtual Controllers, and we're going to go to Computer Keyboard. Click on that. And I'm just going to minimize that so we can see this virtual keyboard here. And I'll open that up again. And I'll bring that down here. Now, if we play, you can see we can control this from our computer keyboard. And we can record that if we want. So let's arm this track for recording just by clicking that arm for recording, same that we did with the audio track. And then we can click up here on the record button. All right, and to stop playback or recording, you can easily use the space bar on your computer keyboard, or you can press the stop button up here. But you can see we've got some MIDI information inputted in here because we just recorded some MIDI, which was actually our computer keyboard. You can also do it with your MIDI keyboard as well. Same steps, but you would just use the MIDI keyboard. So we have this MIDI information in here and it's controlling the drums. And one of the cool things about MIDI is we can change it all afterwards. So if we double click on our MIDI clip, it's going to bring up the piano roll down here. And we can scroll up just using the wheel on your mouse. You can see my playing is a bit off. So I can easily just click and drag. So it's on the line here. And I could do that with this one. Another thing we can do is quantize. So if I wanted, I'm going to scroll out so I can see everything. And I'm going to right click and drag. So I'm highlighting all of my notes. And then what I want to do is press Q. And that's going to bring up this quantize window. So that's Q on your computer keyboard. And we can quantize this so it goes to the 16th note. You can see there's some other stuff in here that you can access. You can offset it to give it a little more humanistic feel. But I'm just going to say, let's quantize this to the 16th note. Click OK. And you'll notice everything quantizes to the 16th note, which really wasn't what I wanted. Let's try that again. And this time we're going to go to the 8th note. Click OK. There. That's kind of more of what I wanted. And some of these are a little off. Again, we can just go in here, but because I have everything selected right now, I just want to click off so nothing's selected. But we can click on our note and move it to wherever we want in here, and we can add more in. So I just played kick drum and snare. I can add hi-hats in here if I want. So there's our hi-hat. I can just click, drag that in there, and I can put these wherever I want, add other drums in. Whatever you want to do, you can do that in MIDI. And another cool thing about MIDI is we have this MIDI information. Say we don't like those drums, you could add another drum plugin in here and use the other drum plugin. So MIDI information will go across instruments. It doesn't matter what instrument you recorded it in. You can use that MIDI information with any other instrument. Now, one thing to keep in mind is not all drum plugins have the same mapping. So what's a kick drum in this plugin may not be a kick drum in another plugin. So that's just something to keep in mind, but you could easily move things around to the same drums in the other plugins. Now I'm going to get rid of this clip that we recorded. So I'm going to delete that. And another way we can do MIDI in here is through a step clip. And that kind of makes more sense sometimes when you're working with drums. And what we can do easily is click on our drum instrument here. That's that little icon again. And right here, it says piano roll if we hover over it. But you can click and hold down on that and we can go to step sequencer, which it already did because I accidentally clicked there. But we have step sequencer in there now. And here is a little easier for drums. So if I click here, it's going to add our kick drum. If I click here, it's adding, sounds like a stick. We might want to, there's our snare, and we can do this again. It's way off. I'm not really paying attention to that, but you can see how easy this would be to add your drums in there. And you notice I deleted those. That's just right clicking. So you left click to add, right click on it to take away. And if you want, you can click and drag and it's going to put them right across there, or you can right click and drag and take them all off of there. And there's other more advanced things that we can do in here, but I just wanted to show you there's another way to work with MIDI in Cakewalk by Bandlab. And there's even more ways, but again, this is just a basics thing to give you the foundations that you need to get started. And I don't want to get too complicated in this video, but let's close this down. So if we want to hide this bottom area, we can just click on the little arrow down there. Let's add another instrument in here. And this time we'll go to piano. And this is the SI electric piano. Comes with Cakewalk by Bandlab. And again, we'll click that to open up the little interface here. If we click on the keys, we have some sound. All right, so let's just get rid of that drum beat that I have in there because it's going to be a little bit confusing. And we'll start to record just very basic piano into here. So I'm going to disarm this track, the drum track for recording, and arm the piano for recording. Then I'm going to hit record. All right, so a very basic piano part there, but you can see what we can do with adding more and more virtual instruments. So if you don't have real instruments, you don't have a real bass, there's actually a bass that comes with Cakewalk by Bandlab, and you could add that bass guitar in there. And there's some orchestra type of instruments in here as well. If you go to strings, you see SI strings, that's in there. So a lot of stuff that comes with Cakewalk. Let's say we like my piano part here, but we just want to use more of it. So I can just click on there and we can hit Control C on our computer keyboard, then click wherever we want and Control V to paste it. Now it's pasted onto the wrong track, but I can just click and bring it up there. If we made that mistake, we can Control Z to undo. Another way we can copy this is to hold down Control on your computer keyboard, click and drag, and then let go, and it's copied it. Or we can click on our clip and Control D, and that's going to make a copy directly after the clip. So if your clip is nicely trimmed up, you might want to do that, and it's going to be nice and time aligned. You won't have to worry about dragging it. But you can keep hitting Control D as much as you want. It's going to continue to make copies of your clip there. So let's do that. And I'm going to move this out of the way, move that over there, and we'll copy this one, Control D. We can add the fades. I showed you the fades earlier. You can add those in there, and you can continue to arrange your clips however you want for your song. You can add more clips in there. If you realize you need to record something else, you can easily start recording from here. And maybe we want to record that second bass guitar or vocals or guitar, whatever right there, or your MIDI. You can just arrange your song however you want and take clips out if you want. If you realize that piano wasn't nice right there, we can just click on it, hit delete on our computer keyboard, and it's gone. Now, what we need to do at this point, let's say we're happy with everything we have recorded in here. It's time to start looking at doing a bit of mixing. So we're going to bring up the console. You can see down at the bottom, we have console. And if you had stuff already open at the bottom, say we have the piano roll already open, you would just click over here on console. And if we scroll up here, you can see it kind of looks like a traditional mixing console that you would see in a studio. And it kind of is. It has a lot of advanced features in here. A lot of it we're not going to go over in this video, but it can be a very advanced tool to use in your mixing. At this point, before you start adding plugins and anything like that, what you really want to do is just adjust your levels and your panning. So let's just listen to what we've got. Yeah, everything's kind of awful in there right now. So we want to lower bass 2, and we'll also want to lower our piano a bit. So we'll do that. I'm going to disarm this for recording, just in case we accidentally hit something. Let's say we like that. Then you might want to do a little bit of panning. So you can see we have these pan knobs here. I'm going to pan this one over to the right, and I'll pan bass 2 over to the left. Now, that's not a typical thing, having a second bass and a piano like that. But what you want to do is make sure you're balancing things out. So if you had 2 guitars recorded in here, I know a lot of people say hard pan them left and hard pan them right. I don't like doing that. I like to go anywhere between 80 and 60 on either side. And you can see there's numbers here. That's the percent. So between 80 and 60%. The one thing you want to make sure you do is balance the sides. So if you're going 60% with one guitar on right, then do 60% on the left side. And that way you've got a balanced sound. If you're off, it's going to sound a little off. But you can use that as a creative thing if you want. And in Cakewalk, there's actually a built-in channel strip on every single track. And let's go to our bass 2 track here. You can see Pro Channel. If we click on this little arrow here, we can see our Pro Channel. Now, another way we can look at it is just to click on this track here, and then we're going to expand this side over here. And you can see we have a couple of channels in here, but let's just focus on one. So we can click on this little icon up here. It's just going to show the channel for the current track that you have selected. So you can see bass 2, and then you can see that there. So you know which one you're controlling over here. So let's do bass 2. And you have a very basic channel strip set up here right now. There's a compressor at the top here. It's kind of like a 1176 style compressor. To enable it, you would just click that to enable, and you can do your compression as you want. You have an EQ here that's actually a really nice EQ. you can enable it there and start doing your EQing. You might want to put the low as a shelf here, and then we can start to lower that down a bit and do whatever it is you want to do in here. Start your EQing, have fun. This isn't a mix tutorial that's going to look at EQing and compression because those are huge topics on their own for their own videos. But I just want to show you that you have these tools in here that you can use to start your mixing. So you don't need to go and add other EQ plugins. You can do that, but you have these right in here and they're built on every single track. And you can see there's also other stuff in here. This is a console emulator that kind of emulates the sound of a console. And you can also add more things in here. So you can see at the top, if we click the plus, there's other things we can add in here. All very basic mixing tools, but they're the building blocks that you need for your mixes. I think I've alluded to this earlier. When you're doing your recording and you're in the recording phase, I really recommend that you don't start adding plugins in yet. Just do your recording. There is one exception though. If you need a guitar amp sim while you're recording guitar, you can add that in. Usually guitar amp sims are very lightweight, low latency, and they're not going to bog your computer down too much. So I'll show you how we can add an effect to a track. And you can do this before you start recording, or you could do it after because it is an effect that comes on after. So even though we've already recorded the bass, we can add an effect on there. So we're going to go to Insert Audio Effects. And again, I have a ton of stuff installed on here, so yours is going to look very different from mine. But what I'm going to look for here is Overloud and TH3. This comes with Cakewalk, and so does this Reverb 2 Cakewalk, and that's a really nice reverb. So I'm going to open up TH3. This is a nice guitar amp sim. It's fairly basic for nowadays, but it is usable. And in here, you can see you have banks. We can click here and you can scroll through and find a preset that you might like, or you could just build your own preset. You can see there's amps over here that you can add in, and there's also cabinets that you can put in there as well. So let's just go to bass super tube. I'll bring that in here. There's bass super tube. And now maybe I want to put a cabinet on there as well. So I'll go with 410 bass. We'll put that on there, drop that in. And if we click there, we can see the head. Click over here, you can see the cabinet, and you can move mics around however you want. There's 2 mics. And now let's just listen to what this bass sounds like with the effect on there. And what I'm going to do is solo this track. So if I hit this S, it's going to solo it so I only hear this bass. And the cool thing is we can change up the settings. You can add effects in here as well. So if we go to all categories, you can find an overdrive in here if we want, and we can add that in there. And you can start to build a sound. You can do that with your guitars. You can change this up after you're done recording because you're not actually recording the sound of this amp sim. You're just recording your dry guitar. So you can change this up afterwards and use other amp sims. Now, what we might want to do is a mixdown. Say we want to share this with the world. So what I'm going to do is just click and drag a section here. So I only mix down this section. Say our song's only in this section. Maybe we have some bits and pieces off to the side that we don't want in our mixdown. You don't have to do that, but I like to do it. Then we go up to File, and from here, we can go down to Export, and we want to export audio. And now we have lots of options in here. So the things you might want to focus on are file type. You may want to change that to MP3. That's up to you. And you can see there's some more things down here, and this is all the default settings. So you really shouldn't have to worry about this. This is probably what you want. And you want all of your tracks, mutes, and solos to be followed. You don't want them to add all that stuff in, the clip automation, all of that stuff you want in your mixdown. And you'll notice here in range, we have time selection, and that's the selection that I chose at the top, but you can have entire project selected in there if you just want the entire project, but I'm going to stick with time selection here. And when I'm ready, I'm going to hit export. And this is going to give me the MP3 options because I chose MP3, and I could choose the quality. I'm going to go with 320. Yes, it's stereo. And quality, let's just go with better. And I could put all the ID3 info in here. I'm not going to do that now, but you can enable that right away. I'm going to click OK. And you can see it's doing the Mixdown up here. And now it's done. And that's going to be in your project folder. So if we go to our project folder here and we go to audio export, you can see we have test 22. We can listen back to that. And that's our Mixdown. And you can take that out of there and post it online, share it with friends, listen to it in your car if you put it on your phone or whatever you want to do. You can easily do that with your Mixdown file. And after all of this, I know it was a lot. You might want to go through some of this stuff even more, but you should have the foundations to start creating music and mixing music in Cakewalk by Bandlab. And I really do recommend adding some third-party plugins that you either get for free or you pay for. And if you want to check out some of the best free ones, click this video right here. If you liked this video that you just watched, please give it a thumbs up. Also, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. Thank you so much for watching. For Audio Tech TV, I'm Zane. Keep creating. Fist bump. Thumbs up.